Friday, you will find us here with a free webinar on great things to do with language, pedagogy-wise and instructional practices. And you're always welcome to bring a friend. We're a worldwide audience, and today we're going to talk about language fun with comics. You can find all the links at bit.ly/ELT links. And if you go there, it is case sensitive, so just FYI. Kids love reading comics. They do. So not only is it good to have online comic creators, which I'll show you some free digital tools, but one of the great things about comics is I think you can actually incorporate it in your reading. So if you have like learning stations, I always like in the reading station, I think reading stations are really great if you can do them. And if you can, I think it's really important to have different collections of comics and things like that, and even graphic novels. So I think that that's one of the ways that you can incorporate it, is have children come for a show and tell and share with you the kind of comics that they love to read on their own. And a lot of times you can find an English version of it. So even if it's in their own, or they can reference that when they're creating their own comics. So I think it's really good to have real comics inside the classroom and let the kids bring them. I found this awesome site that's related strictly to English language teaching, and it's called Grammar Man. It's a very famous comic, I believe, in Asia. Has anyone ever heard of Grammar Man? Well, Grammar Man is so awesome. Not only does it come with comics, but it focuses on it really focuses also on different types of grammar. So the kids at the end of the comic, they have to figure out the grammar. This is what it looks like. It's by Brian Boyd, and it's grammarmancomic.com. So I'll put that in the chat box. And not only does it come out with great types of comics, but there's also at this place, there's free activities you can do with it, free lesson plans, and there's even video of the comics. So I think that's really, really, really fantastic. So the comics come with a video, and they have a PDF that you can download and you can share with the classroom. So it's a really great free resource with lots of different grammar points, and it has really cool things. It's a little, because comics sometimes like this have a lot of words, but they have pictures too. I think you could do this for the intermediate level, and that would really fit well with that. Oh, thank you so much for putting that, Marcus, inside the comic thing. So a little bit of tips for comics. So not all comics come like that. You have the regular comics, and the regular comics aren't language specific like Grammar Man. Grammar Man does some really cool things, like it talks about different things, like it talks about articles, it talks about countable nouns, so really difficult concepts. So I think it's wonderful. But if you have a regular comic that you want to share, which some of them are really great because you have the visuals with it, then there are things you can do. I like to pair or group students with these comics, and that way they can talk about the comic. And it helps with the speaking part and not only the writing and the visuals. When students are creating their own comics, I think it's really good to pair them up as well, because then they can continue a storyline. And also because then they're forced to work together and they're able to tell somebody else about their comic. So I think that's a great idea. AUPs are permission forms, and you can find a lot of them with the links. And what it is it's just these free forms that you can download, and this is getting the parent permission. It's just a form that says, is it okay if we publish your child's comic online for others to see around the world or share and things like that? And I think I've seen some classes, and that's what they do. They actually represent their own cultures. And what they do is, one class, for example, in Brazil might work with a class in Turkey, and they both represent their cultures in comics. So if you want to print it online, just get parent permission and teach Creative Commons. There are some sites I'm going to show you where you can actually take Flickr photos or any type of photos, and you can actually add bubbles to them. And that's a different type of comic. So now I'm going to go through these various sites where you can take, kids can create comics online. Now, I think it's really great if you create a comic offline. The problem is, and it's really useful. In fact, one of the things that I like to do is I actually like to have my students, they write every day, they spend 15 minutes writing a journal article. And so some of those, I ask them, instead of to do the regular journal writing, is to make a comic. I do one of those a week. And it's sort of like a break. So it's sort of like a Friday thing because it's still the writing and it's still something else. So this is Comic Master. And Comic Master, every site that I chose, there were tons of suggestions. But one of the things in the Comic Master and other of these tools are they're free, and they're always free. There's some things like Toondoo that people like, but the problem is that they're only free for 15 days or they're free for 30 days, and so I didn't want to choose those. So I went ahead and I chose the ones that were free always. Comic Master. Comic Master actually walks students through the process of creating a comic graphic novel. So it's actually a longer piece of writing, and that's why I think it's really wonderful. There's lots of features. You have the Comic Master Creator. You can decide how you want your page to look. You can add backgrounds. You can choose characters and props. You add dialogues. You can even add special effects. Thanks for sharing all those. You're wonderful. This is what it looks like when you first start. You set the comic roles, so then the kids already get the format, and that's something difficult when you're doing a print document. Another thing that I like is create your comic based off of Marvel Comics. Now, Marvel Comics are sort of international. They're the most famous comics in the world. So chances are that the parents of your students have read Marvel Comics, and probably the student has had some kind of access to it because they've watched the movies. And they actually have a great site where you can create either a comic strip or you can create a comic book. It's about 22 pages, and it walks you through the process as well. You get different types of formats and different things like that as well. And one of the formats that I really like is it gives different types of backgrounds that look really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the chat box while I tell you about Kerpoof. Now, Kerpoof is another really great comic. Now, each of these comics do different things. That's why I like them, because they actually do different things. But one of the things that I really like about Kerpoof is it actually can have you create videos as well. And these are some of the things that it has you do. It also teaches children from the storyline. They choose a storyline, and then you can teach them things such as you can teach them, that's where all of the links are, by the way. You can teach them at Kerpoof about different genres, and that's something that's difficult for kids to grasp. So that's why I really like Kerpoof. Now, I'm going to share with you some tips. When they make a comic book, so all of these are with longer pieces of writing. They're not quick pieces of writing, so you can do a great big project and kids can get very creative. But one of the great things about these is how you use them. And one of the ways they can use them is they can read these books to little kids. Okay, so my students love to do this. Actually, one of the things that we do is we go to one of the lowest, or in the past what we've done is we've had older kids create the comic books or create books in general. And what we do is we go to the school with the lowest reading levels in our city, which is really low reading levels, and we read to those kids for like a National Literacy Day. And it's a lot of fun, and the kids really feel like they're really helping kids. So it's really great. Do a show and tell with comics. Have each of the students come up, and then they can say their plot line for the comic. You can do this as a pre-writing exercise too, is where they come up and they share ideas and they say, this is our idea for the plot of our next comic coming up. Follow it up with more detailed writing. And then you can do a list of vocabulary or grammar points. So yes, we have to teach grammar and we have to teach vocabulary. So one of the ways we can integrate that with comic books is we can say, what I like to do is I give them a list and I say, choose any of the 10 words from here and I want to see you use it within your comic, or choose any of these grammar tenses or structures, and I'd really like to see that inside your writing. And I think it helps kids. It's a fun way to do it. Now this one is really cool. This is the Read, Write, and Think. And this actually has lessons that are interactive. You can actually download printable things that you can use in the class that also help with the pre-writing of the process of writing a comic. So these are really quick kind of comic activities. Like if you have one day and you want to have them do a comic strip, then these are the websites that you can see. Now, Read, Write, Think has this one, and then I'm going to share, actually, let me share another one that will show up soon. I forgot to share this one. Oh, actually, I can maybe screen share it. So this might be a little tricky, so I'm going to pause me really quick. You'll hear me speak. But let me share my screen because I want to show you what one of these actually looks like. It's a really good worksheet that I took a screenshot of. So let's see, share my screen. Okay. So this is the kind of things that you can download and you can print for Read, Write, and Think. Hopefully you can see that. It's a comic strip planning sheet. You can see the scene and actions that occur, the characters present, landscape and props, and caption. Now, if you make this a little bit bigger, the good thing about that is that you can actually make it to where, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And go back to the document. But one of the things that you can do with something like that is that you can go ahead and you can do pre-writing. But you can, what I like to do is I like to have the kids in the pairs, they do that, and they actually can draw some of it. And I walk around and I ask questions. I say, okay, so what color is this? And this way I elicit the vocabulary from them. Oh, so what is this character doing? Well, this is a girl, and the girl does this. With really little kids, this is a great way to get them to start using different vocabulary of adjectives, personal vocabulary, which are things that you have to teach, but it's a fun way to do it and to kind of assess what they know. If they can say, this is orange hair instead of hair orange, or if they can say, she has 2 shoes, then you know they're really good with articles and things like that. So that's one of the things that I like to do. Kriyaza. Kriyaza is a bit different, and it's really cool for if you want to show point of view, because it has really cool plots, like it has it has Little Red Riding Hood. Sorry about that. In different types of stories that are familiar with kids. So they're probably already gone through Little Red Riding Hood, and they can change the plot. They can tell it from the Wolf's point of view, and they can choose all the characters, and they can write out the script of what it is. They can tell it from the grandma's point of view. They can change the ending. They can make a modern version of Little Red Riding Hood. So that's what Kriyaza is really good for. You have the 3 Billy Goats Gruff. You have the Christmas Gospel, Norwegian Witch. So these are the ones that you get for free. And they're really good because then you can, and then you can do regular ones as well. You don't have to do these. But it's a great way if you have an integrated class, which I've had, and I've had to teach certain stories. It's a good creative way to teach those stories. Pixton. Pixton is really good, but the problem with Pixton is you do have to watch out a little about the content on Pixton. So if you have a little bit of an older group, it has really dynamic characters. It's really colorful, as you can tell here, and it's free. So they're click and drag comics, so they're really quick because a lot of the kids will be able to just figure things out really quick. But there's so many things you can do with the comic. You can make rewards and prizes. You can print and download them. You can share with everyone online. You can make t-shirts. You can upload pictures and photos. And that's really good because then you can do that with mobile devices. You can have them take pictures on their phone, and then around the campus or of their friends. They can take pictures. They love to do that with the pictures. And then they can create a wonderful type of comic strip with their friends. And so that's a great way to use this with mobile learning. And then once they upload the pictures that they just took, then they can add captions. They can add the speech bubbles, which you can see are right here. They can have a freestyle comic layout. They can have props, multicolor props, sketch and shrink. They can even publish their comic books out loud. They can see stats of how many people read their comics and so on and so forth. So there's so many options on how to spread this particular comic. Shogger. Shogger is a really good comic one as well, but you do have to watch out because the thing is that since these are community sites, basically any children or any teens or anybody can make a comic. You can go and you can make a comic and then you can publish it online. So some of the stuff may be a little bit questionable, but if you just put them to the particular site, then I think it'll be okay. And they do have education versions. Just FYI, watch out, is what I'm saying with these particular two. But you do get some really cool things. You can turn any web page into a comic with the Chogget bookmarklet. So let's say that you have to teach a website and you think it's a little not kid-friendly or it's not very easy to read. Sometimes with our history, I find this with a lot of historical kind of content that I find that I want to teach something in history, but it's just too difficult of a concept. For example, the 3 branches of government. That's something that I have to teach the English language learners in the U.S. So it's really good to be able to turn that into a comic and then make it have the visual, so that way it's easier to read that and understand what's going on. This is what it looks like. These are the different layouts that you can do, and you can see how this is much different than the other types of comics as well. Then you have Pixie Kids. Pixie Kids, you can see, I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. But with Pixie Kids, you can actually see how this student right here made a comic strip with her friends. So I'm going to show you what that looks. And this is a great way and an easy and fast way to do it with your pictures, with the students' pictures. So she named it BFF. And then she said, "Hi, I'm Darren." And then she put some information there. And then her other friend, sorry, Raska is snoring in the background. "Hi, I'm Chelsea." And then, "Hi, I'm Brian." And look at the cool pictures that they took. They took it of them wearing balloon kind of hats. Look at our hats. I don't have a hat. And then laugh out loud. And then gave credit. So it's something that's really, really just kind of different. Pixiekids.com. I'll make that. All of these are located in the same site, bookmark. So let me go ahead and add that again. You can find them all right there. Every single one of these is bookmarks. Just click on the tab that says comic. So some ideas. So you see some really great options for your comic creator. And how do you choose which one is the best? Well, it depends what you're doing. If you're trying to do a pre-writing, or then you might want to do something such as the one of the Read Write Web, because it gives pre-writing types of story mapping and storyboarding ideas. And storyboarding means any of those pre-writing, pre-sketching, where you talk about the characters, the theme, and the plot. But there are different ideas you can do as well if you don't have any ideas. But when you're teaching reading and you're teaching a particular, even a reader, if you're teaching from a reader, you can use any of these so they can understand what's going on. A lot of times our kids will read novels or be assigned different types of reading that they have to read, and the problem is that they can't picture it because it's so old. Especially like here, they have to learn Shakespeare, my English language learners, and they don't understand it at all. So what I do is I get them to do podcasts, but I get them to see the comics. Comics are like, they're very easy for students to kind of look at because they're fun and they look cartoonish, and so the kids don't feel so stressed out when they normally would with Shakespeare. And so I like to do things like retell a scene or retell a chapter. And the great thing about comics, even though it takes a little bit of time, is that they have to detail the plot. They can put symbolism. They can do the theme, the setting, and the characterization. So let's say you're doing Jane Eyre, and it's I forgot what era. Okay, let's say you're doing a story from the 1800s. Most of your kids cannot picture the 1800s. So one of the things that you can do is you can have the kids start beginning with the comics to sketch go through the internet. They can find images of the 1800s, and then they can put that inside their comic. And then they can do different things like be able to tell the setting and the theme. And these are questions that often come out in tests. So it's a great way for them to remember dates. It's a great way for them to remember what the setting looks like, where it took place. It's a great way for them to tell the geography. And that's going to tell some stuff as well about the difficult novels that they're reading. Included in a journal or a blog. Recreate history. So if you're teaching history, then what I think as well is that they can be able to, the same way, if they're trying to say what happened in World War I, then they can actually detail what it looks like. They can see the real machines or the real kind of dress styles and things like that actually took place in that era. So for example, you're not going to see something like you wouldn't see something, for example, like if you were doing something from prehistoric ages, you're not going to see a car there because it doesn't belong. So it's a good way for them to tell what things belong and what don't. Recreate math word problems. So a lot of times my students, they have the most difficult time with math, and one of the things I like them to do is they can sketch it out in a comic what the math problem is asking. So if it's saying the train went from London to Paris, then they can sketch out the train in London going to Paris. See? So they are able to understand this even if they've never seen a train, then they can see this visually. Digital storytelling, well, give them some free time. If you have some vocabulary you need to teach, if you have any kind of grammar points you need to teach, you can easily have them do this in a comic. Just give them a list of what needs to be part of that, like in part of the rubric, and then they can do that. And it's a great way to teach intonation. Intonation is one of those things that is really tricky, where you're trying to tell the student that if their body language is in a certain way, and sometimes it's difficult to do that with role playing because the kids won't get it. But if you show it in a comic and then you have them reproduce the differences of what a phrase or word means depending on their tone or their body language, then they can show all of this in comics. So those are the ideas. I hope that they've been very helpful. And if you go to the site, http the bit.ly, and you are able to click on this is case sensitive, by the way, so I'll give the site in the chat box, but if you go over there and then you click on the comics tab, which is the second tab, then you'll find all of these websites, and you will also find lesson plans from the British Council, and you'll find lesson plans that are just happen to be there, and that you can print out as well. So it doesn't all of these sites, you don't have to do them online. If you don't have access to the computer or anything like that, you can always save them as PDFs and have them offline available if you have computers. But if you don't have that, then one of the things you can do is that you can print them, and then you can have the kids go later and they can add it online after they finish the comic. So these are some ideas, and if you have any ideas, I would like to hear some from you of how you've used comics in the classroom. I forgot to put that you can also teach idioms really well using comics, and Janet Bianchini has a lot of great information on that, on how to teach idioms with comics. So I would recommend looking at Janet's site on idioms and how she uses comics for that. And Janet actually does a lot of stuff with images and comics and things like that. So she'll be added to the Life Binder as well. But if you have any thing that you would like to add, I'm going to go ahead and allow the microphone for you. And you just go to the top and click on the green microphone, and then you can share your ideas.
Hello? Do you hear me? So you can write, you can jot down yes if you hear me. Just I want, yeah, thanks. I want to say just something very quickly. Well, I think that using comics in the class, though, as a teachers, we are going to create a laughing and positive learning atmosphere. But the thing that I have to say about this, we need integrated skills. But I think that you forgot to say about speaking and listening. Which is very important here. Even if we teach English as a second language, maybe it's not a problem for American children or whatever. And thanks a lot. Just I want to say something about what about using symptoms. Well, I think that maybe symptoms it's it's a kind of it, I mean using comical situations. By this, I try to use symptoms. While I can ask my students to say in lines. One of them watch the part of the symptom. The other one just they can listen, and then without voice. No audio, and then I can turn the roles.
You, Faisal. I think those were really good points. And that's one of the things that I'd like to, I think you're right that with comics, you do have to watch out that the kids can do the speaking and listening. That's why I prefer to do comics in pairs or groups, because then you have the children speak. And that's why I also prefer to facilitate and walk around. And I actually did this in Turkey. I did in Istanbul with Eva. I got to do a workshop with her and her her entire staff of teachers. And what we did was we actually did the storyboarding, and I walked around and I asked them questions while they were doing this in pairs, and to show them what I was talking about. And one of the things that we did is I would ask them questions, and I would say, you know, what is this color? What is that color? Who is this character? What kind of hair